Hey y'all, my name is Susan Sparks and I'm the senior pastor here at Madison Avenue Baptist Church in New York City. We are a diverse community brought together by faith. We hope that you enjoy our service today. The title of my sermon today is Change the World, Start with the Room. Years ago, right after I graduated from seminary, I was living in South Orange, New Jersey. I know, there's the Jersey people going, what? And I would do the commute in from New Jersey to Manhattan because I was working at the church at the time. And there was one particular moment during that year of commuting that I remember that I want to share with you guys this morning. It was a very early train. I don't know why I was coming in that early, but it was like 6:05 coming out of South Orange into Manhattan. And as most of you know, an early morning train commute is not what I would call a festive experience. You know, there's pretty predictable faces that you would see on a train at that hour, right? There's the person who is exhausted and utterly depressed that they are going to work, so they just stare out the window with this kind of morose look like this. Then there's the person who is buried behind a newspaper, and they just really don't want to be bothered, so they just stay like this. And of course, then there's the person who's just so very exhausted they are comatose with their head in their hand just like this. Well, my early morning trip had a train full of these characters, including myself. I was the one like this. And we sat in the midst of our exhaustion and our sleepiness and our depression and our newspapers until about 5 minutes into the train ride when the door opened and the conductor walked in. "Good morning, everyone." I was like, what? And people looked up. Here's this big, burly guy standing in the doorway of the train with this huge smile on his face. And then he goes and he starts taking tickets and making small talk with people with this big smile. "Good morning, sir. That is a fine tie that you have on. Where did you buy that?" "Good morning, ma'am. You look lovely. That coffee smells wonderful. May I have a sip?" And on throughout the whole train. You know, slowly eyes began to kind of raise up off the papers. Slowly the little sleepy eyes that were kind of comatose and sleep opened up. Smiles began to emerge, which is an incredible miracle on a 6:05 train. Passengers began to actually look at each other, which, as we know, never happens on a train. A couple of people even laughed. I have to say, it was the closest thing to a miracle I've ever seen. Because before my eyes, the energy on that 6:05 a.m. train began to change. People's emotions lifted up a little bit. The energy in the train lightened just a little bit. The load that everyone seemed to be carrying in that car lessened just a little bit. I sat there and marveled at how this one man, this conductor, had managed to present himself so full of light that early in the morning, before it was light. I mean, he probably had to get up earlier than anyone on that train. I'm sure he was struggling with his own problems, his own issues in his life. Yet, the moment that door opened and he crossed that threshold, he chose positive over negative. He chose joy over being sullen. He literally lit up that train. And here's the thing. Then all of those people on the train that he made smile, in about 20 minutes, got off that train and went out into the world, to their workplaces, to their businesses, to their homes, out on the city streets, and they took his light that he had shared with them. He changed the world, starting with a train car. You know, like that train conductor, every one of us here has the power to change the world by starting with the room. Now, I know many of you are sitting there going, "Oh, here we go. It's Tony Robbins in the house." And I know it sounds, kind of hot pie in the sky. We're going to change the world. But you know what? It's true. It is possible. One person can change the world. We can change the world. And let me give you 2 reasons, the best of reasons, why that's true. One is that science says it's true. And the second one is that Jesus says it's true. And if you can't find something persuasive from one of those 2 sources, then honey, I give up. Let's talk about the science reason first. And this is for the scientists in the room, and if you're not a scientist, stay with me. Scientists and psychologists as far back as Charles Darwin have argued that emotions can be regulated by behavior. Now think about that. We think of it the opposite way. You know, we think about the fact that we smile when we're happy. But in fact, science has shown that we can create happiness through the act of a smile. For example, there is scientific evidence that shows that when a person smiles, when we physically form a smile on our face, it triggers physiological changes in the brain. A part of the brain that actually controls our mood, that in the end causes a feeling of happiness. In short, we can change our inward emotion by changing our outward expression. You've heard me say what we feel in our hearts manifests in our behavior, and how we behave over time is who we become. We've talked about that before. You know, it's not only about changing our own hearts, which we can physically by simply forming a smile, but we have the power to change those around us with that smile. I think of the famous lyrics by Louis Armstrong. He sang, "When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you. And when you're laughing, the sun comes shining through." I think Louis was onto something because science has again proven those lyrics to be true. Neuroscience has shown that merely seeing a smile or a frown, when we see a frown or a smile, activates mirror neurons in the brain, and we mimic that emotion. Translated, when somebody smiles at us, usually we smile back, and vice versa. You know, this research, interestingly, has caught on in a number of industries, including the hospitality industry. For example, Walt Disney World and a lot of hotel chains like Ritz-Carlton have something they call the 10-5 rule. When a hotel employee is within 10 feet of a guest, they must make eye contact and smile. When that employee is within 5 feet of a guest, they must say hello. Why? Because human nature, people tend to mimic behavior, and that 10-5 rule ensures that the behavior presented will ensure a positive experience for the guests. So there's your science reason. But for those of you like me who are liberal arts majors, let's talk about Jesus. Jesus tells us that we can change the world. Consider his words that BJ read for us in John 12. Here, Jesus is towards the end of his ministry, and he's trying to explain to the crowds, warn them about his upcoming death, warn them that the time is growing short. And Jesus says, "You are going to have the light just a little while longer. Walk while you have the light before the darkness overtakes you. Whoever walks in the dark does not know where they are going." But then here's the real kind of core of this scripture to me. Believe in that light while you have the light, so you can become children of the light. I mean, Jesus talks a lot about his life and ministry in terms of light. We see it later in a familiar passage in John 8:12. "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And of course, Psalm 27, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" But for me, I just keep coming back to that John 12 passage. Believe in the light while you have the light, so that you can become children of the light. It's just so simple to me and clear. It's so clear. If we believe Jesus' commandments and follow them, we become children of the light, which means we have the power to shine that light, change the world through the light of love and mercy and forgiveness. Remember, I said the sermon title was Change the World, Start with the Room. And that's all we need to do, is simply start with the room we're in. This week I was doing some research on doorways and thresholds, as we do, right? And found, it's such a great job I have, I love it. And found that many ancient cultures, including the Greeks and the Romans, and even the Vikings, I'm looking at Toby, considered doorways as sacred, as holy thresholds. In fact, there is a Christian monastic practice called stasio, where a monk or a nun, as they enter the church, will stop. They will pause in order to shed any burdens or distractions they are carrying that might get in the way to being truly present with God. I just love that practice, the idea that when you cross a threshold, you stop, you pause, you let go of your baggage so you can be fully present in the light of God. And I just love that so much. I am going to ask each of us to practice that this week. I want you to think about all the doorways that you will cross this week. Maybe you'll be walking into a room where there's a contentious meeting at work. Maybe you will be walking into a house where there's tension with a family member. Maybe you'll be walking into a rental car agency where there's a huge line with angry people and the folks at the counter don't understand the insurance policy. Just saying. Whatever doorway you are about to cross, pause. Pause just for a moment, even a split second, and realize in that moment you have the power to change that room and all the people in it. Make a choice in that moment to let go of what you're bringing in, whether it's burdens of fear or anger or resentment or exhaustion. Drop your burden so that you can walk in that room with nothing but the full light of God. And when that happens, that transformation is nothing short of miraculous. Y'all know I was preaching down in South Carolina last Sunday, and we were near the coast, so early Sunday morning I went out there, took my sermon, and ran out to the shore, and I just sat there with my sermon and watched the sunrise, which was such a great blessing. And we've all seen the sunrise. Everybody's seen it at one point in their life. There was something so powerful about this one, though, because it was that flat horizon of the Atlantic, not a cloud in the sky. And as I sat there, the sky changed from black to gray to kind of pink to orange. And then all of a sudden, this one ray of light just pierced the horizon. And the second it did, the whole landscape changed. The colors changed. The temperature changed. Warmth started coming in to the life around me. And then, I don't know, there was like a sense almost of hope as that light pierced the horizon. I mean, that image of the sun cresting the horizon, changing the landscape, is the power that each one of us has as children of the light. In a minute, Richard's going to sing a great solo. Where's Richard? Oh, back there. Yep. By Paul Simon. And in the lyrics, there's a question asked and answered. Who believes in angels? I do. Well, brothers and sisters, this morning and every day, we can be the angel. We can be the change agent in the room and transform people's hearts and lives. Like that train conductor, we have the ability to take a room of sorrow or anger or exhaustion or hopelessness and raise it to the rafters with love and with mercy. So this morning, I want us all to commit right here, right now, that house by house, workplace by workplace, community by community, nation by nation, we as children of the light will change the world. And we will start with the room we're in. And the people said, Amen.
A pilgrim on a pilgrimage walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, his sneakers torn, in the hour when the homeless move their cardboard blankets and a new day is born. Folded up in his backpack pocket, the questions he'd written from his heart. Who am I in this lonely world, and where will I make my bed tonight when twilight turns to dark? Questions for the angels. Who believes in angels? Fools do. Fools and pilgrims all over the world. If you shop for love in a bargain store and you don't get what you bargained for, can you get your money back? If an empty train in a railway station calls you to its destination, can you choose another track? Will I wake up from these violent dreams with my hair as white as the morning moon? Questions for the angels. Who believes in angels? I do. Fools and pilgrims all over the world. Downtown Brooklyn, the pilgrim is passing a billboard. It catches his eye. It's Jay-Z. He's got a kid on each knee. He's wearing clothes that he wants us to try. If every human on the planet and all the buildings on it should disappear, would a zebra grazing in the African savannah care enough to shed one zebra tear? Questions for the angels. Questions for the angels.
We are so glad that you came to be with us this morning in worship. I know as I said, we have a number of visitors. I hope that you will remember that you are always welcome in this community and will always be considered family. And until we see you again, I ask God to bless each and every person here in this building. I ask for God's forgiveness, I ask for God's joy, and I ask for God's healing for everyone here. And as we go through those doors, I hope we will all remember that through the gift from God, we have the power to be the change agent. We have the power to change the world, starting with the room. Amen.
For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Thanks for joining us. Madison Avenue Baptist Church is located at 31st and Madison Avenue in New York City. Our website is www.mabcnyc.org.